This is streamlining your tech stack while accelerating digital transformation. My name is Nick Patrick. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Radar, and I'm lucky to be joined today by Sergio Pérez, who's the Senior Director of Omnichannel at Bojangles. We have a great discussion lined up for you all today, but before we get into that, wanted to start with some proper intros. So we'll start with Sergio. As the Senior Director of Omnichannel at Bojangles, Sergio is an innovative marketer specializing in brand strategy, omnichannel initiatives, and digital product development. Recognized for launching top-tier digital platforms and pioneering effective sales strategies, he is dedicated to redefining Bojangles' consumer experience through digital transformation, resulting in over 100 million in digital sales. Sergio has been honored as one of QSR Magazine's 35 Young Leaders to Watch and featured in Charlotte Business Journal's 40 Under 40. And before Bojangles, Sergio worked at Church's Chicken, Johnny Rockets, Perkins Restaurant and Bakery, Huddle House, and Garden Fresh Restaurant. So Sergio, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
My name is Nick Patrick. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Radar. A lot of you probably know Radar as the geofencing industry leader, but we recently launched a Maps platform as a cost-effective alternative to Google Maps and Mapbox. So today we're calling ourselves the all-in-one location platform. In the restaurant space, we work with brands including Bojangles, Panera, Dairy Queen, Whataburger, Jersey Mike's, and many more, powering location-based use cases spanning from order-ahead arrival detection to location-based marketing and messaging, location-aware on-premise app experiences, store locators, address autocomplete. And outside of the restaurant space, we work with companies like Dick's Sporting Goods, T-Mobile, Zillow, and many more across industries. So before we dive into the discussion, I wanted to start with a poll question just to kind of set the stage and get folks engaged. So raise your hand if you're spending more on digital transformation in 2023 or more on digital transformation this year than you did in 2023. And then keep your hand up if you're also considering streamlining your tech stack or consolidating vendors in the process. Cool. That matches what we're hearing from folks like Sergio and also some of our other customers and prospects and partners. So excited to explore those themes today. Wanted to break the discussion into a few different parts. We'll start with Bojangles and their growth, what's behind that. We'll then dive into the meat of the discussion, talk about investing in digital transformation, with some practical advice from Sergio and some things that we've heard and seen from some of our customers. We'll then do a quick lightning round. I've heard Sergio has some spicy takes prepared for us maybe, and we'll try to save 10 or 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. Sound good? Cool.
It's bow time.
All right, it's bow time. Let's get into it. So Sergio, maybe to kick us off, Bojangles is rapidly expanding and becoming a powerhouse brand. I went to college down in North Carolina, and it kind of felt at the time like Bojangles was like the best kept secret in North Carolina. Now I see you all everywhere. So can you tell us a little bit about Bojangles' growth over the last few years and what's behind it?
Yeah, for sure. I think it all starts with the food and really the cult-like following that the brand has had over the last 47 years. We believe that we have some of the best chicken and biscuits, although we've got some good representation up here too with crispy, crunchy chicken. But we think that people should have access to good Southern food with bold flavor, and so that's generated demand from a customer perspective. But the state of the chicken business is also very strong, and so you got existing franchisees who want to open more restaurants and expand with us, but you also have prospective franchisees who are looking at that fact that chicken's having a bit of a moment and want to get part of the action from a chicken and biscuits perspective. So I think it's all about there's demand out there, and we think there's lots of opportunity for us to take that bold Southern flavor elsewhere.
Love it. I attended a great talk by the Tilster CMO in this room yesterday, and she talked about how consumer expectations have never been higher. And curious, Sergio, when it comes to guest experience, what are you all doing to stand out from the crowd?
For sure. I think us being a Southern brand, I think we want to represent the best of what the South is about. So where we win, it's not just, from a food perspective, but it's about the hospitality, right? It's hard to, anybody who's been in the South knows that Southern hospitality is special, and that's part of, how we differentiate ourselves from a lot of the competition too. We believe that abundant value is critical, and so we want to make sure that $1 spent at Bo is $1 well spent, and so we want to make sure that there's always plenty of food to go around the table, but also maybe a little bit more for you to take away. So because of that, it's critical for us to deliver that across every single touch point and every single interaction we have from a customer perspective. And so making sure that we're delivering on those brand promises, whether it's on social, whether it's on our website or our app or in restaurant, we want to make sure that we're doing that. And I think that's part of the reason why we work very well together from a Radar and Bo perspective, because location technology has really enabled us to get better at the local game, whether that is making sure that customers are getting fresher, hotter food with the arrival times, whether that is us delivering the right offer or the right message based on a location or specific location of people. And I think that's a bigger trend that we're going to see. You're going to see folks moving from more macro, big national campaigns and strategies to more localized approaches. And so if you're not investing in location technology, I think that's going to be, it's a miss. I think you should be investing there more, just because it's going to be critical in terms of finding those purchase moments for customers.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. At Radar, we talk a lot about the Amazon effect or the Uber effect. The average consumer has like 100 apps on their smartphone,
Yep.
and they have really high expectations around speed of service, personalization, et cetera. So we spend a lot of time thinking about ways we can help our customers break through the noise, deliver amazing standout experiences, be an app that folks want to put on the home screen of their phone and keep coming back to. You talked a little bit about location-aware messaging and personalization. Can you just talk a little bit more about how Radar and Bojangles have worked together over the past few years?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's three specific components to the partnership. One is really about making sure that folks are getting fresh, hot food when they order it. There's nothing sadder than cold fried chicken and biscuits. It's a little bit heartbreaking if you have that. So it's critical for us to deliver freshness as an important factor. So taking into account where a customer is when they're placing that order, to be able to determine when you fire that to that restaurant certainly helps from an overall quality perspective and perception. Two is really from a messaging standpoint. So if somebody's driving by a Bo, the ability to say, hey, it's Bo time. By the time you get here, your food, your chicken and biscuits will be ready. Certainly a big opportunity. But also one of the interesting use cases where I think we're very excited about as we head into the next phase of our transformation is leveraging location both from a sport partnership perspective in terms of trigger offers. So think about if you score 3 goals, you get a free biscuit. The ability to target that at a specific stadium or area, I think there's lots of opportunity there. And then 3, identifying from a competitive perspective, can I get a free sandwich next time if somebody pulls up at a Chick-fil-A or pulls up at a competitor establishment? I think gives us another use case in terms of being able to show some share and take advantage of that location relevancy that customer's having at that point in time.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys were also one of the early Radar Maps platform customers, and we've started powering store locators for a lot more of our customers. Jersey Mike's came to us and switched their store locator from Google to Radar, freed up some budget to maybe invest in geofencing down the road. So we're starting to see that pattern more and more as well, which is exciting.
Well, and I think it speaks to the fact that I think all of us are responsible for a P&L, and I think there's lots more pressure in terms of delivering cost-friendly solutions, not only to the system, but also for franchisees. And so part of the reason that not only is the Maps product a great product, but it allows us to save a significant amount of dollars from a Google mapping perspective to make sure that we're not, as you're increasing your digital revenue, you're also increasing the cost of maintenance and, all the other things. And so finding ways to either streamline to save some dollars or reallocation of those dollars to maximize revenue is, I think, a big priority for us, this year.
Cool. Well, I think that's a great segue into kind of the meat of the conversation. So, the title of this talk is Streamlining Your Tech Stack While Accelerating Digital Transformation. And I guess I'll just kick it over to you, Sergio. At a high level, how does Bojangles think about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting journey. We've been doing our digital transformation for the last 3.5 years. When I got there was a website that was about 7.5 years old. There was a database of about 300,000 users, and there was no online ordering, and delivery had just launched, I think, a few months before that. And so it was quite the task to take a 45-year-old brand that hadn't really played in the space and accelerate a lot of that work. And so for us, we spent, I think, a good amount of time building infrastructure, building capabilities, building the stack to make sure that we can enable sales driving and engagement with customers. And as we've hit different stages of that transformation, we've really now focused on, look, at some point the building needs to not stop, but taper down, because one, you need to control costs, but two is at some point, CEO, a CMO, a board member is going to ask you about what the return on this is. And so shifting from not just building technology and features and functionality to tying that into sales driving particularly profitable transaction growth is important. And so we've shifted our mentality from having to build lots of features and functionalities, plug in a lot of pipes, and really focus on how are we driving the top line, because ultimately, as marketers, that's what we're responsible for. The features and functionality are nice, but if customers are not giving you credit for it and it's not driving to more business results, then you shouldn't be building that.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. We were prepping for this and you talked about moving beyond building to driving profitable transactions. So you guys have made a lot of big investments over the last couple of years. Now we're sort of in the payoff stage. Maybe talk a little bit about that, what that looks like in practice, and how you're thinking about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're also, not just building, but adding additional partners. And one of the big changes we did over the last 6 months was a new customer data platform to also be able to maximize that investment. And so if you're capturing that data, you want to make sure that you're leveraging that and activating that across the board. So whether it's sending the right offer, whether that is, putting the right message in front of folks, whether that is, showing them a different configuration from a menu perspective to be able to drive that conversion, we're really focused on how do we drive customer lifetime value. The acquisition is important and frequency and all these other metrics are important, but ultimately what matters to us is, can we drive profitable transactions and can we increase customer lifetime value over time? And this is where location or customer data platform, all those touch points are important. And so for us, that's kind of the top measure from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. And maybe more of a sort of abstract question, but how do you guys make technology decisions overall? What goes into it? What constitutes a smart technology decision at Bojangles?
For sure. I think sometimes we get too cute and AI or NFTs, for example, everybody jumped on the NFT bandwagon a few years ago. And I think we're so quick to follow the trend. I think the way we think about this is, what is the business need or the problem we're trying to solve for? Then pairing that up with, what are clear objectives to, leverage this technology to actually solve that problem or enhance a different version of the business. 2 or 3, it's also about how do we engage cross-functionally with our team members. It can be a marketing specific decision. We got to bring operations, you got to bring franchisees, you got to bring IT to get that alignment. And so, like I said, we start with a problem, we identify objectives, we bring people along from a alignment perspective, and then finally, we look at a short list of partners who we think are not only a good fit to solve that problem, but also give us a seat at the table from an innovation perspective, which we've been grateful to Radar for that partnership, but also that care about the business the way we care about the business. I want to make sure that I'm working with people that if we've had soft sales for 2-3 weeks, that someone's calling to say, hey, have we thought about XYZ, or I've got a new use case for this piece of technology. So we want to make sure that we have that, and then just overall great cultural fit for us in terms of how we do business and how we operate. So that's in long summation how we think about long RFP process. We try to keep them short because of the clarity in terms of objectives that we're trying to solve for.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the sort of cultural alignment piece of that consideration, which I think is potentially a bit unique. Talk about measuring ROI more generally. You talked about customer lifetime value and being able to quantify that. How else do you think about it when it comes to technology decisions? And
yeah, I mean, ultimately, you need to grow the top line from an overall investment perspective. Tom, our CMO, has brought a new discipline to our system called the champion challenger approach to make sure that we're consistently testing offers, consistently testing messaging, and making sure that we're going after the things that are driving conversion. And so for us, ultimately, what matters is, are we effectively driving profitable transactions day in and day out? Anything else can, get too cute in terms of measurement at the end of the day.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. We saw a real phase shift happen in 2022, 2023, where I think folks really scrutinized their tech stack. They looked at, is the ROI super clear? Is it measurable? It's part of the reason why we launched Radar Maps platform. It was, how can we help our customers find cost savings opportunities, kind of make the macro work for us, not against us. And then for some of the geofencing functionality, whether it's through our integration partners, whether it's our CDP or other MarTech partners, or just sort of directly within Radar, like the ROI has to be crystal clear. It has to be defensible because everything was getting scrutinized. It does feel like things are opening up a little bit in 2024, but I guess when you think about the investment piece of ROI, there's obviously sort of the R, sort of the numerator, revenue or profit. Then there's the investment piece, the denominator. Curious how you guys think about that, and yeah.
For sure. So I think every CFO would want the financial model to be far more conservative and will give us a lot of leeway in terms of what those cost structures look like. I think for us is one of the benefits that we've had for the system is app offer redemption is a critical piece of that cost. Oftentimes turns off franchisees in terms of, I don't want to give away food or I don't want to discount a specific item. And so one of the things that we have done over the last 3 years to help improve those models is to subsidize or cover the cost of every single redemption for the system. That way you don't have franchisees upset about discounting or giving something away. So for us, it's not just about driving the top line, getting better at operations to reduce the number of refunds and order accuracy, which is a big problem. It's also about how can you help subsidize some of that cost through either negotiating better deals with partners or leveraging marketing expenditure to help subsidize some of those costs for franchisees.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. We spend a lot of time at Radar thinking about how we help our customers achieve a quick time to value, and sometimes that comes in the form of developer experience. How can we make our SDKs really easy to integrate? But we also have folks that maybe don't have in-house development teams or they work with agencies, and so we think a lot about how can we integrate into white label apps? How can we partner with agencies to give them the right tools to ultimately help our customers get to production and realize value faster.
Well, and I think that's an important point that we don't talk enough about in terms of new technology. Every IT and marketing team is stretched incredibly thin. So when you want to integrate a new product, when you want to launch a new feature or functionality, it takes lots of resources and time. And there's a million things happening from a restaurant perspective. Sales might be great tomorrow. The day after that, there might be a fire you got to put out, and all those touch points impact your ability to deliver on that development timeline. And so the headline is the longer you wait from a development perspective, the least amount or the shorter amount of time you have to actually capitalize on that investment. And so if it's a 3-month development cycle, but instead it's now 6, you've missed a big chunk of opportunity to maximize that investment. And so I think oftentimes we get too focused on getting it perfect to make sure that you go to market. Sometimes you got to take a little bit of a risk and say, we're going to ship now to maximize and then learn across the way to optimize over the long term. But speed to market is incredibly important, particularly in the QSR space. And so we're trying to find ways to reduce some of that time to be able to drive more sales and maximize on that customer engagement.
And when you talk about learning and sort of discipline and accountability, generally speaking, how did data and analytics play a role here for you guys, your strategy, measuring stuff? Just kind of curious how you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's critical to anything we do. That's why we invested in a customer data platform a couple months ago, and starting to see the dividends of that in terms of do we have the right menu offering? Do we have the right offer set for the right set of users? Do we have the right media strategy? Are we talking to the right consumer? All that data allows us to make smarter decisions, not only from a content and offer perspective, but also smarter decisions around how we invest from a media perspective, how we think about menu development in the calendar. And so we have lots of access to data now, and so it's important for us that we're not only leveraging that to inform our plans, but that we're consistently testing and learning to make sure that we are getting the best out of that experience. And so data has been top of mind for a lot of us. The industry has been incredibly behind in terms of data operations, but we see the value in helping us inform how we think about the business.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. This is something we're thinking a lot about at Radar right now. I think location data can be really powerful to help quantify ROI, but also identify new opportunities. One of our customers, Dick's Sporting Goods, did some basic instrumentation with Radar, and they found that 20% of app opens happened in store, which they just kind of had no visibility into, like, where are people engaging with the app. That helped motivate an investment in store mode. But we're thinking about, obviously, for things like order ahead, measuring wait times, starting to understand in a privacy-friendly way, where are people coming from when they visit your restaurant? Where are they going after? How often are they going to your competitors? Competitive conquesting, stuff like that. And so I think that can be done through a combination of potentially third-party data used in interesting ways, but also first-party data flowing into your CDP. So this is kind of an active area of thought and investment for us. I think it's really exciting. Cool. Why don't we segue into the sort of the lightning round hot
Sure.
take section? When it comes to digital transformation, there's lots of kind of possible tech investments, lots of trends, lots of competing priorities. You mentioned teams are stretched thin. So wanted to do a bit of a lightning round and kind of get your takes on a few of them. I won't ask about NFTs. Sounds like you're bearish on NFTs, but maybe we can just run through a couple. You mentioned AI earlier. Curious how Bojangles thinks about AI in your opinions generally.
I think there's three very interesting use cases for us. One is offer decision making. So oftentimes a lot of how do you deploy the right offer, the right message, there's a lot of data mining and folks on keyboards that need to be there. If you have the opportunity to leverage an AI tool to allow you to either identify a segment, identify the right offer for that segment, I think not only does it speed your time to market, but it allows you to be more of a strategic thinker versus data miner, which I think is critical. Two, we're big fans of leveraging AI from a recommendation perspective. So you're at checkout, retail does this very well. If you're at checkout and you just have a chicken sandwich, why not have a nudge that says, make it a combo? If you have family meal, maybe there's a nudge to say, do you want to add more biscuits? Or if you always get a Bowberry biscuit on our end and you don't have it in the cart, it should be able to ping you and say, hey, don't forget your Bowberry biscuit. And then third, and finally, is around guest relations. I think some of the third-party providers, Uber Eats, DoorDash, have set the standard in terms of how quickly it is to resolve a complaint or an issue that a customer might have. But that's lots of infrastructure you got to build and headcount you got to build to be able to solve for it. If there's a way to get help quicker from an AI perspective, I think it would make our customers happy, but also deliver on that Southern hospitality that we've talked about earlier today.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I was at the Shop Talk conference a couple weeks back, and pretty much every vendor had AI somewhere on their booth. I was wandering around the expo hall in there earlier a bit, and we haven't put AI on the radar booth yet, but I feel like we need to soon.
Next year.
Yeah, we're thinking a lot about how it can be used for the things you mentioned, but also a lot of our customers need to set up kind of complex geofences around their restaurant footprints. So how can you kind of look at map data, satellite data, maybe automatically draw a geofence around the restaurant perimeter or the parking lot or the drive-through or the curbside pickup area? So I think there's some really cool applications when it comes to mapping and geofencing, even beyond just location signals as an input into great recommendations or personalization or whatever. Maybe that's a good segue into kind of the second trend around personalization and localization more generally.
Yep.
Where do you think that's going? How does Bojangles think about that?
Yeah, I mean, QSR has been a street fight for as long as QSR has been around. I think there's always a focus on what can I do to help reduce sales of my competitor. And so local store marketing has been, I think, critical to the industry for a long time. And with digital, we think that this is a great opportunity to deliver more local happenings. Local, relevance is critical for you to make a decision what restaurant you're going to visit, what kind of deal incentive you need to get there. And so we think that location is going to be critical to not only maximize your investment, but folks gravitate and convert better when you deliver personalized experiences and content. And so we think that that's a trend that we're going to start to see more folks leveraging location, CDPs, CRMs to get local. And more importantly, how do you also empower franchisees to do that? And so that you're going to start to shift, I think, a lot of the control from a restaurant support center to actually franchisees at the store level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think from a location perspective, we're kind of graduating from this, hey, I'm within a mile of a Starbucks, send me a coupon, to things that are much more sophisticated. You mentioned some of the sort of sports-centric activations. Am I in my hometown or am I on vacation? Am I at the beach? Is it hot or cold out? These are all sort of contextual signals that I think can make for great localized experiences. And also sort of, moving beyond just kind of background push and email and thinking about, in the app, whether it's a sort of on-premise mode or an in-app message, how can you understand when somebody's opening the app on-premise versus off-premise, in a familiar place or an unfamiliar place? So there's a lot of potential there.
And a good use of that, to give a shout out to Uber, when you land at an airport, 9 out of 10 times you get a notification that says, do you need a car? And so those kinds of local contextual kind of touch points are going to be critical, and you're going to start to see a lot more of those.
Mm-hmm. You wanted to talk a little bit about custom front ends versus templated front ends, and I'll let you speak on that.
Yeah, I would say, my headline is that, I think digital transformation has been broken for a long time in the industry, and there's been a lot of sort of white label template solutions that are great generally, but the way I describe this is if we're actually building brick and mortar restaurants, what we're doing from a digital perspective is everybody has the same prototype, and the only difference is the logo and the menu you're ordering from. And so if it was in real life, none of us would ever sign up to create the same restaurant across the board, but yet we're okay doing that from a digital perspective. And so in order for you to maximize your brand and think about, digital products as an extension of, is, you really need to think about, the copy, the colors, the overall experience as a whole. And sometimes templates don't allow you to do that. And so another piece that you're going to see, continued focus on is how do you build digital products that best represent your brand. And so we think that the brands that do that are going to, turn up to be on the top.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I mean, I feel like Bojangles has such a distinctive brand, and we talked earlier about breaking through the noise, and so investing in tools that help you get up and running quickly and customize and stand up front ends, but also not just be a cookie cutter thing.
Yep.
I think is important. I had some interesting conversations earlier with very large portfolio of QSR brands. They've built a lot of stuff in-house. I think there are some interesting kind of tension points and decisions to navigate around. Am I using off the shelf or sort of buying tools from vendors, or am I building in-house?
Sure.
Where do I draw the line? What makes sense? I think the way we think about it at Radar is, we want to plug into these off-the-shelf tools and help you get up and running quickly. But we also want to help you sort of buy to build and be a developer tool, infrastructure. And I think it's interesting. We've found folks that, build location features in-house, then they sort of reach a breaking point. They want to switch over to us. Maybe they're starting with us. Maybe they're sort of deciding whether it's worth investing here or elsewhere. So I think there are some interesting, build versus buy conversations more generally. Looking at the clock, maybe one last one. Curbside. Some folks are very bullish on curbside. Some folks are very bearish on curbside. I'm curious to get your perspective on curbside and just where off-premise ordering is going generally.
For sure. I mean, I think the pandemic forced us to create all order modes available and just rush to get it done, and that's the position we were in. But I think that as we're in a post-pandemic world, we're getting back to normal. We heard about this yesterday at the general session in terms of we're kind of finally getting back to the normal side of things. And I think folks, at least from our perspective, we're seeing curbside not be maybe a whole brand thing. While we have it available across every restaurant, not every restaurant's built the same. And so I think thinking about where does it make sense to have curbside from an accessibility perspective is important. But at least from our trends and our transactions, we're seeing that either stay relatively flat or decline, and more growth in terms of first party and third party. And I think for some brands, like part of being in the restaurant is an important element of that brand. And so I think folks are also missing some of that human touch, not for all brands, but for us, we're certainly seeing that, come back.
Yeah, makes sense. I think a lot of our customers kind of thought about order ahead and curbside pickup as synonymous during the pandemic. And now I think there's more variation in terms of pickup modes. We've seen more interest in drive-through. Obviously, curbside can be amazing, but it can also be very labor intensive. Right. And so thinking about what's seamless, but what's also efficient.
Yep.
Cool. We've got about 10, 15 minutes left. I guess, just maybe we can sort of share some parting thoughts and then do Q&A. So Sergio, if you had one final piece of advice to digital leaders looking to streamline their tech stack while driving digital transformation, what would it be? What's the most important?
Yeah, I mean, I would say ship product fast and really focus on clarity with your vendors and partners. I think our biggest learning has been it's like an agency. The better direction you give folks, the better they're going to be able to deliver for you. And so making sure that we give partners a seat at the table from a roadmap perspective, make sure that we're very clear as to what we're trying to build, what the objectives and how we're going to measure them has led to, I think, a more successful technology relationship with us. And so I would say, don't be afraid to encourage your partners to have a seat at the table, be very clear in setting expectations for them. And if you do that, you tend to drive some really good results.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your insights, Sergio. That was great. I think we've got 10 minutes or so for Q&A. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you for your presentation. It was great. My question is, we're talking about a tech stack.
Yep.
And you're talking about partners, and sometimes they don't all speak the same language.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm in 10 locations. so
Sure.
I'm like the CEO and the CMO and the CTO. The C-suite.
Yeah.
I wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
So my question is, I have NCR, I have Matronics,
Yeah.
how do you find the integration that works?
Yeah.
On a good day, and how does Radar fit in? I looked at your site, API, like how do you integrate with the app that we have?
Sure. I can tell you that what worked for us is we, early on after we brought kind of all our partners to the table, we created what we call a tech hub. And so we have set up a weekly cadence with all our partners at the table. They know what our strategy is, they know what our calendar is, they know what our roadmap is. And we built that together alongside them. We didn't come and say, here, I need you to do X, Y, Z, like they're experts in those fields. And that's why we brought them to the table. And so that tech hub status has been critical in terms of getting alignment, but also making sure that there's no competing priorities, right? There's some folks who would say, look, I can also do CDP or I can also do this thing. And so, it's important to also clearly define the roles and responsibilities of those partners, particularly when there's an issue from a technology perspective, right? You want to make sure that there's clear who owns it. And so for us is really giving them a seat at the table. I think we're, working alongside them to build your roadmap and your strategy and making sure that, you just have candid, conversations in terms of roles and responsibilities. And that has been, what has worked for us. And we also allow our partners to push back. We might want to build something too aggressively, or we might need to, whatever that might be. It's important to also allow them to, be a part of the conversation versus just telling your partners what you need and what you want.
Can you share your tech stack with us?
Yeah, so we, from a CRM perspective, work with Brace. For our customer data platform, we work with Vicky, who's in the back of the room. Radar from a location perspective, Plain Air for our app and web and overall digital strategy. And I think that's that.
POS also.
POS, we have Xenio Expient, which is a global payments product. So yeah, that's from a hardware perspective. And then Olo for ordering.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's a great question. We've thought about how we can help our customers push and pull data wherever they need it, sort of avoid data silos from the beginning. My co-founder was actually early salesperson at another CDP, not Bicky. I won't say the name since Bicky's in the room. And I feel like we got to build a Bicky integration soon, by the way. But we've always had this mentality of kind of flexible APIs, push and pull data wherever. So a lot of our customers will use Radar in tandem with Braze or with a CDP, with Olo. And so we have turnkey integrations with a lot of those tools. One sort of interesting tension that we've been navigating and seeing is I do think there was a sort of explosion of tools over the last couple of years, and it seems like we're in sort of a bundling consolidation cycle. So we're thinking about where do we sort of draw the line in terms of what does Radar support out of the box in terms of location analytics or location-based push. Do we help you do some basic, user segmentation based on location? Because historically we sort of, outsourced a lot of that to our tech partners. But in general, I think interoperability, avoiding data silos, kind of providing value as a standalone tool, but also turnkey integrations into other tools is really important.
Ask one more question.
Yeah.
Does Radar integrate with Yelp? Is that your partner? Yelp a partner?
Good question. We do not. We're familiar with those guys. We, from a sort of a store locator perspective or store listing perspective, we power the maps, we power the geocoding. A few of our customers have sort of set up all of their restaurants or stores and Radar as geofences. For a while, they're using Radar for geofencing and something else for maps, and they were like, hey, can you guys just power our store locator? Why do we have 2 or 3 tools here? So I do think there's a trend towards, consolidating both the map side and listing side and the geofencing side into a single tool.
It's also less phone calls to make from a partner perspective.
Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, the location-based offers. You
Yep.
mentioned that you have the ability to offer a customer a free sandwich
Yep.
if you know that they're at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
How do you know that they're at Chick-fil-A? Is that legal?
Yeah, through the Right, through the geofence. So actually, I mean, you can talk about the Burger King project you guys did.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the use case you describe is only possible if the customer opts into background location, which I think Apple and Google have really raised the bar for requesting those permissions. So assuming folks opt in and they know what they're opting into, you can do some competitive conquesting. We powered a campaign back in the day called the Whopper Detour that Burger King ran, where they ultimately sort of understood when somebody was at a McDonald's and said, hey, take a detour and you can order a Whopper for a penny at a Burger King. So I think there are opportunities to do this. One trend that we've been seeing is more and more of our customers are only relying on when in use or foreground location permissions. I think that's kind of the future. Yep. There's some really cool new functionality in iOS that lets you display contextual notifications even when the user has the app closed or their phone in their pocket by sort of pre-scheduling those notifications. So we're seeing background opt-in rates in the range of 10, 15, 20% best case, whereas foreground or when in use opt-in rates tend to be 70, 80%. So I think there are some cool new privacy-friendly ways that folks like Apple and Google are facilitating location-based push. And at the end of the day, we're sort of an abstraction layer on top of all that stuff. And location permissions and location services are constantly changing, and we want to help our customers take advantage of those features in a privacy-friendly, thoughtful way. To your point about sort of understanding, when somebody's at a competitor, we work with our customers to sort of import and draw custom geofences. So most of our customers know where all of their stores or restaurants are. We found some challenges where if you want to do really precise detection, like understanding if you're inside the restaurant or understanding if you're pulling into the drive-through, oftentimes our customers have sort of coarse lat longs for their restaurants. So we have some out-of-the-box point of interest data to help you sort of fix those lat longs, and we also we know where every Chick-fil-A is, we know where every Walmart is, so you can kind of take advantage of that stuff as well. Any other questions? Yeah.
You talked earlier about building the infrastructure and how do you get your return on that? How do you measure that? And we're at a crossroads right now where small and medium-sized franchise is helping our business.
Sure.
About 200 more that we need to open. And we're going from like Excel worksheets because that's how we
Sure.
to track everything when we're at 20 stores, right? And so I'm trying to build this infrastructure.
Yeah.
Just getting pushed back. All right, what's the return on investment? So
Sure.
on a tech stack, and so I'm just wondering, how do you prove that ROI? How do you measure that based on things?
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's a couple things. I think one, you really need to think about what you need to build. Like sometimes you get romanced by the thought of I need a Ferrari and I'm going to go and buy the best thing that's available, but you might just need a Honda, right? And that's all you need. And so I think starting there to make sure that you are buying what you need versus, oftentimes you get deals and you end up buying things that you might not necessarily need. So I think starting there helps. I think second for us was the ability to prove the impact of the digital customer. I can tell you that, our average check is about 2.5 times what our in-store guest is. They tend to, visit more frequently. There's, higher level of engagement here. So the incrementality of these transactions is high. And us doing credit card analysis, there's anywhere between 60 to 70% of those transactions tend to be incremental. And so when you start to point at, and what your CEO will care about, what your franchisees are going to care about, is are you making more money today than you did a year ago on the same day? And so digital is a great way to expand that pie and to show that, look, I'm driving X number of digital transactions. Here's the check, here's the incrementality versus just shifting people over. And just the test and learn and sharing that information with, your franchisees, with your board, with whomever that is. Digital allows you to measure lots of different things. And so user acquisition is going to be critical. Increases in overall transactions is going to be critical. Are you driving better check? Are you driving customer lifetime value? And so that's where I would focus, because ultimately, sales solve everything. And so if you can show that you're driving transactions, you should be just fine.
Sergio, earlier you sort of talked about multi-year, big kind of vision investments, but also kind of notching quick wins and being agile. I always sort of think about how you can, if you have this big project that might take multiple years, get crystal clear about the North Star and the vision, but make sure it's not a monolithic investment where you're not going to realize value for a couple of years. So can you sort of have this North Star kind of top-down view of where you want to go, but then also a sort of bottoms-up plan to get there where you're kind of realizing value along the way. And that's kind of how we think about building product at Radar. I feel like that's always sort of a useful framework as well. We have time for maybe one more. Going once.
And twice.
Going twice. Done. Thank you all for coming. This is great, Sergio. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.